Can we talk about the foreshadowing in Season 1, Episode 1, Game of Thrones, Winter is Coming? I recently started rewatching the series for the umpteenth time, and I actually made an episode recap if you want to go catch that. It's on my page, part 1 and part 2, because there was so much in that first episode. I've never made a 2-part video in my whole life, but there was so much in that episode that I needed to. And one of the things I kept seeing over and over and over again was the foreshadowing of episodes in the not so distant future, and as well as episodes all the way up to season 8. Here is your warning. If you have not seen Game of Thrones fully through the end, if you do not want anything spoiled, keep going. Here's your chance. One more time. I do this thanks to my friend Ida. Okay, we're good. Let's take this scene for instance. Ned is the deserter of the Night's Watch after he tells him that his colleagues were taken down by White Walkers. Ned doesn't believe it. White Walkers haven't been around for centuries. So he goes through with said punishment. And then his littlest son that was with them, Bran, looks at him and goes, "Do you think he was lying, Dad?" And he says, "A madman sees what he sees." That's very interesting. Because flash forward to season 8, where Daenerys is sitting on top of King's Landing and hears those bells, and something in her goes, snaps, and she goes on a Dracarys spree throughout King's Landing. No man, woman, or child excluded. But here's the thing. Daenerys believed what she believed. She believed she was breaking the wheel. She was changing the way things were done. She was doing this for the better good, for the greater good. And down to the very last second, when she's in that throne room with Jon, right before she tells him, "I'm doing this for the people. I believe in it." And she has the tears in her eyes and the childlike optimism that she had in the beginning of the show. So she really believed that she was doing it for the good of the people. Obviously, this picture is not from this episode, but it was the only picture I could get. When we first see King's Landing introduced at all in episode 1, season 1, the first thing we see are the bells ringing. That was to signify Jon Arryn's death. However, as someone who, I said in the other video, has post-traumatic bell syndrome and post-traumatic bell disorder, this traumatized me because I'm like, oh no, not the bells again. Because it was foreshadowing the bells ringing in the last episode with Daenerys and the Dracarysing of King's Landing. Then we have the scene of Arya watching the cavalcade come in, and this is the image we get. And obviously it's the first image of the Hound we see. And the foreshadowing on this was kind of twofold, because it was Arya looking at the Hound, which foreshadowed their relationship, which turned into be like a father-daughter relationship that lasted well into season 8, to the final episode, actually. That was one foreshadowing. The second foreshadowing is that it looks like a wolf that's on his head. I know it's a hound because he's a hound, but can you say foreshadowing of the Red Wedding when we see Robb Stark with the head of his direwolf, both being paraded around the Eyrie? Yeah. So the foreshadowing of this scene, twofold and done absolutely beautifully. Then we have this scene, which is the reception scene when King Robert does finally enter Winterfell. He hugs his bestie, Ned. They all genuflect, and then he gets up, gives him a big hug after he calls him fat. It's quite funny. Catelyn, he gives her a kiss out of respect. He tuffles little Rickon's hair, and then he goes, "Oh, Robb." And he shakes Robb's hand, and because he hasn't seen him in a very long time, so he grew up and became a man. Then he goes over to Sansa, and he comments on her beauty. He asks Arya, "Who are you?" And she's like, "I'm Arya." He's like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then he goes over to Bran and, he looks at him and he says hi. And he doesn't even acknowledge Jon. Important point right here. Every single Stark that King Robert Baratheon touched died. He did not touch Sansa. Sansa made it to the end. He did not touch Arya. Arya made it to the end. Bran, again, we know what happened there. And Jon Snow as well, or Aegon Targaryen if you wish. All 4 of those lived. Rickon, gone in the Battle of the Bastards. Catelyn, Red Wedding. Ned, Joffrey. Robb, Red Wedding. All gone. So this scene was a huge bit of foreshadowing and actually very beautifully done. In this scene, Robert says to Ned, I have a son and you have a daughter. In my mind, at least I clicked it and clocked it as at the end of season 8, the only surviving member of the Baratheon house is not any of his bastard children, but Gendry Baratheon, his actual bastard child, who Daenerys legitimized. So he does have a son. Ned has a daughter. He actually has 2 daughters. But Arya goes off to explore the world. Jon is a Targaryen, and Bran is the three-eyed raven. So that only leaves Sansa. So you have a daughter, and I have a son. Just something I picked up on. Then we have this scene, which is right after Daenerys is confronted by Viserys, and he's like, I don't care if you want to marry him, that's what you're going to do. And so she goes into the bath, and it is steaming. You could see the steam up there, and it's just scalding hot, and she goes in, and she does not burn, foreshadowing her walking into the pyre and not burning. This scene with Catelyn and Sansa. Sansa's begging her mother to let her marry Joffrey, because if I do, I'll be queen one day, and that's all I ever wanted. Foreshadowing her becoming Queen of the North at the end of the series. Here's Uncle Benjen, I'll get out of the way, and Jon Snow. And when Jon Snow is begging Uncle Benjen to take him to the wall, and Jon's like, I want to go, come on, let's go. And Uncle Benjen says, remember, you're not going to be able to father any children. And Jon's like, I don't care about that. And Uncle Benjen said, if you knew what it meant, you would. To me, right there, foreshadowing that lineage is important, and you need to know what it means to be, the importance of being a father. The importance of his father being Rhaegar Targaryen. And so that just came into play with me, and that was a foreshadowing of that. When Ned is contemplating going to be Robert's hand, Catelyn reminds him of what happened to his brother and his father in the South. Both his brother and father were executed by the Mad King Aerys. So it's like, you know, your father and your brother got down there, but you're going to go down there? That doesn't sound very smart, which she's obviously foreshadowing what's coming if Ned does decide to go to the South. Also, this is a callback to me of season 8 Sansa, right before she tells Tyrion about Jon's lineage. And he explains to Sansa how she'll be queen in the north because Jon is going to go south with Daenerys and rule with her. And she says, the men in my family don't do well in the south. Obviously, call back to Ned and his father and his brother. So it was another foreshadowing of what was to come later on. So what do you think? Am I right about the foreshadowing, or am I just looking way too much into it? Like this video if you like it. Comment if you agree with me, or if you disagree. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation. Is there anything I missed? Or did I just go overboard and grasp at straws? Let me know. And as always, follow me for more Game of Thrones content. Bye!